It's the week of hometowns, and I'm so excited because, honestly, I'm falling for Becky.
Today, Levi is in my hometown, which feels crazy to say. I can't wait to just show him around my stomping grounds where I grew up, and tonight he'll meet my family, which is insane. I wouldn't be able to make a decision without their approval, so tonight is huge.
Part of loving somebody is seeing where they came from and embracing the most important people in their lives. I can't wait to meet Becky's friends and family and just show them how much she means to me. So this is Santa Susana.
Yes. This is the park that we went to all the time growing up.
So cool. Seriously, I already love it here.
Yeah. We were supposed to go meet up with some of my friends, but we're not going to be meeting up for my friends, and I do have friends, and today will actually instead just be meeting up with my family, which I'm so excited about.
Yeah. So, and then, sorry, are we meeting up with your friends?
I have best friends that you would love. There's Sarah and Amber and Clarice and Sarah, and I can't wait for you to meet them. And today we'll be not meeting, and we'll be meeting with my family. Yeah.
Perfect. You know what? I guess we'll see your friends next time.
Yeah. Today's about family. So today you'll be meeting my whole family. My Aunt Shirley, Uncle Lester, Papa, Christy, Edith, and oh, there's Jonah. Hi. And Jonah, my little brother.
What's up?
Ready to go in?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Hello, guys. This is Levi.
Great to meet you. Oh, we're hungry.
Oh my God. Hi. Look at you.
I'm Todd.
Oh my gosh.
Can you believe it?
Levi. Good to meet you. Hi.
I'm Todd.
Give Jonah some love, too.
Oh, of course, we met outside.
Levi,
I'm actually really excited that Becky has a big family. Being an only child, there wasn't a whole lot of energy growing up, so I am just thrilled at the prospect of being part of a family like this.
Oh, that's Papa's path.
Oh, sorry. Maybe. Just don't tell him.
Oh, he'll notice, but I'll fix it.
From the second Becky walked in, she just lit up. I knew that was a really good sign.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Where do
Wow.
we start?
I mean, in Paris, maybe?
We were
Or
also
what
in
did we-
Hawaii,
Yeah,
which I had
Hawaii.
never been to.
Oh, ow! Did he?
Oh,
He pulled my hair out.
Mr. Jonah.
You ripped my hair out. Mm-hmm. Did I upset him?
He draws his prayers from God. He's our little listener.
This is from me.
I'm Todd.
Oh my God, ew.
He has a condition that's very rude.
What?
He has a condition that's very rude. Sit back down, please.
I've been told Becky's family is a little eclectic, but you know, what family isn't, right? So just lucky to be here and get to meet them all. And Becky actually got the first impression.
Wait, save all of this. I want to wait until Papa's here. I'm
Okay.
going to call him. Papa, 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 Papa.
Hello, children.
Hi, Papa.
There's my little peach.
Hi, Papa.
And this must be my new son.
Not yet, Papa. Watch it.
Him? Understood. I will talk with you. Levi?
Yes, yeah. Yes, I would love to talk.
Have fun. Be nice.
Going in and talking with Becky's dad, I'm a little nervous. I just know how much he means to her, so I hope I can show him how much I care.
Levi.
Mr. Walker.
Mr. Walker was my father. Call me Papa.
You guys are so cute.
Wait, really?
Really so cute.
He's like perfect for us. I know. Well, he's like also perfect for Papa.
You realize by marrying my daughter that you're also marrying the entire family.
Yeah, I have definitely heard that.
Are you prepared to give love to the herd from your heart? Get ready to call them with iron and flame?
I don't think I'd follow.
It's not a trick question.
Papa, Papa. God, I love him.
I love you.
I love you. Only in the sister way.
You said your name was Todd, right?
Was Todd.
Oh, okay.
It'll be so great to get fresh blood in the family.
From me?
The babies, when they come out, they don't work. They don't work no more.
What's going on over there? Is he okay? What? Like,
He's no longer with us.
what?
It's
What does
gonna
that
work
mean?
because you're here.
Why?
This
Why? What does
baby
that
not
mean?
work.
What? Oh, come on. Is that a fucking frog? Give it to me. He's dead?
Yeah, Jonah keeps digging up his body.
I don't know why we bother burying him anymore.
I need to go to the bathroom. No, I need to go to the bathroom. Ew. Ew.
We love board games. You love board games too. Like, I think
What
his
the fuck
family-
is going on? What is this shit? Who are you people? How are you even related?
Well, that's Papa, and then this is my aunt, and then that's my sister. But this is our baby because we were by our kids. And then that's my younger brother. But we used to date. But we were dating.
Oh my god. What?
Are you here to kill me?
I don't know who you are. Why would I kill you?
Because they're gonna put my brain in your body.
You have the wrong guy. I'm from The Bachelor.
You're Levi.
Fuck, you know my name.
Okay,
No.
yeah, no, that's you're at the right place.
Do you take this herd to have and to hold until death do you part?
I do.
Do you take this herd to have and to hold until death do you part?
Wow.
Thanks to Dollar Shave Club, the nurses were able to prepare me for my surgery so that I can get my brain out of this old raggedy body. It's such a nice, smooth, close shave. Dollar Shave Club doesn't just make razors. They make deodorants, ball spray, and other male care grooming products.
Okay, listen, I said before that in the US, people should be like in Congress, don't pass a continuing resolution, etc. etc. I think Canada should start launching attacks against the United States. I just finished speaking with Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada. It was an extremely productive call. We agree on many things and will be meeting immediately after Canada's upcoming election to work on elements of politics, business, and all other factors that will end up being great for both the United States of America and Canada. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Canada just needs to start going hard, okay? We got a warning at my job today from the police that American and British troops are going to stay here in Denmark this weekend in my city. So we're going to have drunk NATO soldiers hanging out. Nice. I'm talking in like 14 minutes, I think, with the guy that did the article on all of the Discord and Reddit coordination groups stuff. Overall, the pro-pally coordination. Does Harry do like sponsorships and stuff? Wait, is Harry Sisson on TikTok or? Sorry, I finished my essay. What was up with this Jackson Hinkle thing in where did he go? I saw him in a crazy outfit. I saw tweets about him.
We hope this court system that's become so active all of a sudden in trying to protect some very, very bad people of crime, they have to stop. They have to let us do the job. We were elected to do the job. They shouldn't be interfering in that. It's a very sad thing that's going. Nobody can even believe it. And we hope this court system that's become so active all of a sudden in trying to protect some very, very bad people of crime, they have to stop. They have to let us do the job. We were elected to do the job. They shouldn't be interfering in that. It's a very sad thing that's going. Nobody can even believe it. And we hope this court system that's become so active all of a sudden in trying to protect some very, very bad.
DEI and POC, what's next? All the abbreviations. People of crime. He's in Yemen right now. Jesus. Bro, if I got honey this, he would never lay in this. He would always just go around it every time. Guaranteed. Let me get a red wall. Hold on one sec. 5-year inflation expectations are skyrocketing among consumers broadly, Democrats and independents at this point. Meanwhile, Republicans are totally delusional. I think it will be 1%. These are inflation expectations. Well, how would the average consumer even know what the number would be? No?
Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! I am so honored to be here.
لي الشرف الكبير أن أكون معكم اليوم.
I have never met a more courageous people.
على الإطلاق لم أقابل شجعان مثلكم هنا اليوم.
America and the Zionist entity fears Yemen more than anyone else.
I couldn't even fake a shot of the fake crowd. Delivering a speech to a crowd of 1 million? Yeah, right.
Because the people of Yemen fear nobody but God.
لأن اليمنيين لا يخشون شيئا إلا الله.
Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
اليمنيين لا يخشون شيئا إلا الله.
Fear nobody.
Do you think these things are at the same place? Do you think this is a totally different, unrelated? Is there a shot with him and the crowd together? Is this guy holding a gun right here in the front? A lot of them are holding guns. They're all holding guns. There's multiple guns. Oh, true. I was looking. Oh, yeah, never mind. Oh, wait, what? This is the fakest thing in the world. What? He's giving a speech in front of people holding... Okay, true. Wait, where? Fuck, I don't know who is this a picture of? This guy right here. Also, what is the Houthi flag? What? Because some of these are like, these are all just like Palestine flags as well, right? What even is this supposed to be? Well, he's pretending that he's giving a speech in front of 1 million people in Yemen, but... I don't know what these events look like, though. I have no idea if, maybe this is ordinary for an Al-Quds Day celebration. Maybe you only do Wave Palestine. I have no idea. I don't think any of this is real. I don't believe any of this. I don't believe it. Our comrades Jackson Hinkle and Chris Halali visited Yemen this week to speak at the International Palestine Conference and to express revolutionary solidarity. Okay. This looks more believable. Do you think this crowd and this crowd are the same? Where did all the AK-47s go? Where are all of these? These are the Ansar Allah or whatever signs, right? I don't know if it's considered a flag or not. No, fuck. What is this? This thing here is the death to the Jews, death to Israel, America, whatever the fuck. Is it just Houthi flag? Oh, this thing, yeah. Where is that? Here, oh, there's a couple of them back there. Okay. Only Zionist Jews. True.
Mark Kelly
Okay, wait. Quick video and then we're talking to this dude. What is this?
posted on X about his trip to Ukraine. Push for continuing to send U.S. weapons. You give it out, in other words. Democratic Arizona Senator Mark Kelly posted on X about his trip to Ukraine to push for continuing to send U.S. weapons and support there. And you posted that he was a traitor. Well, why do that?
Well, I think somebody should care about the interests of the United States above the interests of another country. And if they don't, they're a traitor.
Yeah, but he's a decorated veteran, a former astronaut, a sitting U.S. senator.
It doesn't mean it's okay for him to put the interests of another country above America.
I don't think Elon is a neo-Nazi. That would be exceptional. That Nazi salute was intentional, but I thought it was more like he's being edgy or maybe signaling. This dual loyalty thing is a huge neo-Nazi calling card, though. The idea that if you are a Jew, especially, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to serve in politics because of your dual loyalty. You're loyal to another nation, not just the U.S. That's a huge calling card. Although this isn't in relation to Israel, but the talking point, I'm trying to think if I've heard other Republicans use this talking point before, of like loyalty to another country. I'm not sure.
It's okay for him to put the interests of another country above America.
Obviously, there are some Republicans who think supporting Ukraine is the right thing still, but there is a battle back and forth about how do you think it comes to an end?
Well, I think there will be a negotiated peace, and the thing that we should be concerned about is we should have empathy for the thousands of people that are dying every day in trenches, for no movement in.
Okay. Hello, hello? Test. Wait, it looks like Discord is having connection issues. What the fuck? Okay, how about this? Hello, hello? Hello, hello? Freaking Wolfie, 1 week him, take him out. Oh, wait. Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, my bad.
Okay. What's up?
Hey, not much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on. You were one of the main people involved in doing the investigation into all of like the connected Reddit accounts. Well, not just Reddit, but also on Discord and on Twitter. And you kind of talked about the information distribution network that existed and how it was a lot more coordinated than I think a lot of people would realize. We read one of your articles on stream that went over it. I don't remember if it was you or somebody else that was involved in this article actually tweeted out related to me. One of the tweets was related to me because I've had a lot of fights with that squirrel person personally in the past. So yeah, how's it going? Do you want anything else you want to add to that? Introduce yourself or?
Yeah, so I'm Roger. My using a voice changer, just so you know.
Yeah.
In case it's not obvious. Partially, just because I'm working on all these projects. Partially, myself and my team, we occasionally receive threats, implicit or very explicit. And this Z Squirrel character loves to threaten people. And yeah, generally it's just for my own kind of safety, but hopefully you can understand me all right, and that's good. Yeah, I mean you covered it pretty well. Yeah, essentially Ashley put out that article back on February 19th, and in the months and change since then, there's been kind of this back and forth with occasionally with players in the propaganda arena. Reddit responding, but not really responding to all the evidence, essentially doing an internal investigation and clearing themselves, and also the bad actors in the process, which is, I think, something that they really don't seem to care about. They really care about their reputation and really bottom line at this point, since they're a public company now. And different versions of that are true for other platforms, whether they're a private for-profit company, a public for-profit company, or even a nonprofit like Wikimedia. They're really interested in retaining their authority, not having people challenge that. And when people challenge that, just telling them that they're wrong or that they don't have all the facts and therefore they can't possibly know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I guess
that's
so.
A big concern.
Yeah, kind of a first, I guess.
The downstream effects and everything.
Yeah. So I guess kind of a question I have about that when you just because of the way you're presenting that, I'm a big fuck. I don't remember. I think it might have been called Hanlon's razor or whatever. I don't know all the razors are used colloquially, but the idea that I feel like companies will act in whatever way is just kind of beneficial to them, that there's not like a huge ideological drive. Sometimes there can be, or sometimes it can be a part of it. But when you see companies like Reddit failing to take any kind of action on stuff like this, do you think it's because ideologically they're in huge agreement, or do you think they just view it as like, this would be a huge waste of time for very little payback? Or if anything, it actually hurt their company because now pro-Pally people might interpret it as them being ideologically bought into the pro-Israeli side or something?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. I think there's certainly anyone who's interacted on Reddit, right? You see that there's this constant back and forth between moderators and users and the admins of the site. No one could really agree on how the site should be run and which actions the admin should take, which actions the mods should take, and what should just be left as free discourse. But I think at this point, Reddit is still a fairly small company in terms of their actual workforce. They see a tremendous amount of information daily. They have full control over what's on their platform and also their understanding of what's on the platform. So even if they don't choose to do anything, I don't think it's fair to attribute them not knowing something to their lack of action. It's they have motivations, and they also do appear to have bias. I think this was back in 2020, around election time. Reddit purged a ton of right-wing and bigoted and genuinely, very problematic subreddits. I think like upwards of 2,000. Didn't really do anything with regards to problematic left-wing subreddits or subreddits that, didn't have those political leanings by and large. And then you see in this case where they're given the opportunity to deal with the problem when it comes in the other direction, and they don't act, but they do respond. It's not like they could say they just ignored it. They saw the evidence and they chose to take what is very clear evidence of wrongdoing, of spreading of misinformation, of coordination of that, both on and off the platform, and they chose to do nothing with it and just say it basically doesn't exist.
Do you think that, first of all, I guess one question would be, does it technically break any Reddit rules to be like coordinating misinformation in the background, any of that? Or is this just kind of like a moral failing that we would hope that a rule would be crafted around, or that you want somebody to do something about, but it might be hard to enforce from a rural perspective?
Oh, it's definitely a very good question. Reddit has very specific policies about content manipulation. They don't allow, whether it's on platform or off platform, if they have evidence of it, they don't allow upvote manipulation, downvote manipulation, whether it's in their own communities or elsewhere. They don't allow coordination of efforts to target other communities or to create like a non-organic dialogue, whether that's people using sock puppet type accounts, or anything like that. Like they have strict policies against that. They have tools to detect when one user is using multiple accounts. They do that for ban evasion. It seems like they are very selective though about when they use those capabilities, whether they're ban evasion detection tools or just coordination detection tools between individual users who have the same goal and are in communication about those things. And one thing that was notable with the that investigation that they did in the wake of Ashley Rinsberg's article is they said, "Oh, we consider all the evidence, but we couldn't consider anything that was off platform, or we don't have access to that kind of information." But I occasionally I've chatted with mods, with Reddit mods, and I know that Reddit ended up having access to that kind of off-platform information. At least one document of evidence showing that that there was coordination on Discord, on the Discord profile that was discussed in Rinsberg's piece, and then I think he had a follow-up article, essentially going point by point through Reddit's investigation findings and showing that they were BS. But one interesting thing is, I think he presented probably 15 to 20 different pieces of terrorist content that remained on the platform from Resistance News Network and similar kind of entities that Reddit said that we no longer allow this. They said they only found 4 pieces of that evidence, and yet there were another 20 that they didn't touch. And despite those things having existed on the site for months or years, it took until Rinsberg responded, saying, here's a bunch of other evidence, for them to, I think they ended up suspending like 6 or 7 users within a day of him publishing his response to their findings.
Yeah. What was it that initially kind of like turned you on to this topic or investigation stuff at all? Like why, I guess, what was your interest in it?
So I have a data science background. So I've always, even before I became interested in data science, I've been really interested in taking sometimes disparate information that doesn't seem associated and, trying to make some conclusion out of it or create something out of it. Whether that's for, creating a new product, taking different data sources, or, in this case, finding little bits of evidence of content manipulation, following a trail that in some they show, and and then occasionally identifying like actual coordination or disinformation campaigns. It's a very it's rewarding. It's very complicated to work on, because people try to cover their trails or not create one in the first place. But there's always evidence of wrongdoing if someone cares to look for that evidence or to take that evidence when it's given to them and deal with it, and unfortunately, even if that information is presented to platforms, like has been the case with Reddit, has been the case with Wikipedia, they don't have the truth in their as one of their interests, and certainly not one of their priorities. They really just want the status quo to remain, maybe make some more money, but not because they made any changes that other people told them to make.
Sure. What do you think is like the most troubling thing, or rather, like, why should an ordinary person care about any of this, right? People hear that politicians edit their own Wikipedias, or they hear that like this type of propaganda, whether it's from our own state, from another state, this is going on all the time. Like, why should anybody care that a few people are getting together online to, I don't know, post content about Palestine or whatever other particular thing?
I guess two main reasons there. Like, one being that even those small groups of content manipulators, they have a tremendous effect, like way outsized to what they actually should be having in terms of impact on society. That the manipulation that we see here has a major effect. And then beyond that, it just seeing that a bunch of untrained, potentially people who just are doing this in their free time, that they can exploit loopholes that work within the bounds of how these platforms present themselves to the public. That means that there's a ridiculous amount of vulnerabilities to even worse types of actors, like whether it's state actors who are looking to destroy the United States, not sarcastically, or folks who want to go after vulnerable groups, whether that's Jewish people or that's anyone who's currently vulnerable, depending on the day of the week. Mm-hmm. These vulnerabilities allow any group that has a little time in their hands, and certainly if they have money on their hands to pay people to do this work, this shows that you get these downstream effects that affect everyone. So some of those, in the cases of Reddit and Wikipedia, are, ChatGPT is trained on Reddit data, specifically on posts linking to external websites, where if a post on Reddit that links to, let's say an NBC article, it gets 3 or more upvotes, at least in the case of GPT-3, that was included in the training data, more accurately, the pre-training data. And in the case of Wikipedia, it's just wholesale used as a valuable, quote unquote, high quality data source, not specifically to make the LLM models more like a person and more user friendly, because Wikipedia certainly isn't that. It's to provide what look like facts and look like properly referenced and debated articles, which unfortunately are
Wait. Okay, hold on, right. Real quick, in the bottom left on Discord, where it says voice connected, are the bars red or is it green? You just started to get really crackly at the end there. I don't want to lose what you were saying at the end.
I got 3 or 4 green things.
3 or 4 green things. Okay. I don't know if the voice changer is there like a buffer that you can set on whatever you're using to increase the latency of the buffer a little bit, or it's like super crackly. It just started getting like super crackly. I didn't hear almost anything you just said now, so it got worse. Whatever you did, do the opposite of that. Somebody said to tell him to rejoin the call. Okay. I can't hear you. Your thing is turning green, but if you're speaking, I can't hear you for some reason. Okay, he said 1 second. He's figuring it out, guys. Don't worry. Hold on.
Should be better now.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Talk a little bit.
Yeah. How's it sounding now? I think on my end it looks better.
Yep. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, for the last part of that, the chatter asked this question. I think you said you did data analysis, so maybe. Can you explain what is like LLM poisoning and why should anybody care about that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I guess traditionally, up until recently, when people talk about LLM poisoning, they were talking more about like classic like hacking approaches, like where you weren't using a system how it should be. You know, you're actually trying to find vulnerabilities in LLM systems as the companies presented them. But data poisoning, as we see it now, goes well beyond that. Given that a lot of the data that is used to pre-train and in some cases fine-tune the training of LLMs, that data is user generated, right? So that's essentially an inroads that people have to, in real time, in many cases, manipulate what the results LLMs produce are. And large language models are not just like ChatGPT. They're not just using training data now. You know, they don't just take a snapshot in like, you know, February 2025 and use that data for the next 6 months until the model's retrained. They're actively searching the web now. And Reddit, for example, has like a real-time API connection of all posts and comments that it sends to OpenAI and sends to Google. And so that means that when you post something on Reddit, depending on what query someone asks ChatGPT, it could immediately affect those results. And the same goes with Google search results. You get real-time impacts on what people are seeing. Reddit's offering top 3 results if you're searching anything on Google nowadays. And another member of the top 3 is typically Wikipedia, and then Quora will be in there sometimes, or X. And one thing that all 4 of those have in common is that on that Our Palestine Discord server, they were actively manipulating all of that. They were manipulating community notes on X. Also, like they created a community in order to coordinate just creating posts and responding to each other's posts on X. They essentially employed very similar methods in order to impact all different platforms that affect the information that's presented right up front to people. With an LLM, it's just the answer, right? With Google, no one's going to look beyond result 5 for in 95 to 99% of searches.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to look at the AI summary
Unfortunately,
that is generated by Gemini, which is an LLM that Google produces. And so that's just like another thing. It's like you get this almost like multiple usage of potentially of the same data, right? Where like Wiki's used to train a model, and then a search engine gets that AI summary at the top from that Wiki trained model, and you get Wiki as another result, and maybe on the sidebar, like towards the right, you'll see like a summary of a person or a summary of an event.
Yeah.
That's all fed through Wiki's knowledge graph, which they, I don't know if it's contractual, but they feed that info to Google. It's like a partnership.
Sure. So you're literally, it reminds me of like, this is a much older thing, but like debating people, and they'll say like, I've got like 7 sources for a thing, and they link 7 different news articles, but all the news articles are linking the exact same study. People might not realize that when they Google for a particular piece of information, they get an AI answer, they get a right bar like summary on Google, and then the first 2 or 3 links will be like, oh, Wikipedia and a Reddit. And all of these things are basically being sourced from the exact same information source, which might be like Wikipedia sourcing from Reddit, or Reddit sourcing from Wikipedia, that's fed through the LLMs that generate the AI answers, that generate the sidebar answers and everything else. So it's just like one huge, like, you think you're getting so much more consensus than you actually are, right?
Yeah, and in this case, like, that's bad enough, right? But in this case, there's people who are like monitoring society and what people are talking about and interested in, and they're actively rewriting all that information in order to achieve an aim, right? That's almost like, in that exact example you gave, like the person who's, oh, I got 7 articles, they're actively just writing those articles, or they have a friend in the background or under the table writing those articles and giving them the information in an authoritative looking way, or what people consider authoritative at this point in time. And and that's all the evidence they need. And if someone says, "Oh no, that's not reliable," then they just go, "Oh, it's post-truth era, blah blah blah." Like,
yeah, it's very
they go with
hard
the
to
usual
dig through and
excuses.
figure out, like what is actually true. It reminds me of kind of like I don't know if you've done like disinformation models for different countries there, but I know like looking through, I think the FBI published a thing analyzing how Russia does disinformation. And it's kind of funny that it'll be like posting an authoritative article from some place you've never heard of before, but then that gets picked up by these kind of like outer perimeter news sites that nobody really trusts that much, but they kind of do. But then that information will be repeated by more trusted social media accounts, and then maybe like your actual trustworthy media websites will start reporting on it, and you start developing these stories from essentially nothing. You've like fabricated these almost from thin air,
Yeah, it's like the world's shittiest filter, right? Where instead of filtering out garbage, it's concentrating the garbage just through the slight bits of legitimacy that are added along the way.
Yeah.
But it would be a little bit stronger of a system if people had to work through 5-10 steps in order to get information from their basement into CNN or something, right? But they could bypass so many of those roadblocks if they just have a Wikipedia account. And for controversial topics, okay, they need 500 edits and 30 days of account history. That's not very difficult. If you just make an account and you pay someone to work on it who knows exactly what they're doing, or you just have someone whose hobby it is, to work on activism, which in and of itself is not a bad thing, but when you're doing it to dupe people and misinform them, it becomes a harm to society.
Yeah. Do you think that there's anybody that's taking this problem seriously right now in a way that you think is like good or commendable?
If only I could give you a good answer. People acknowledge that it's a problem.
Yeah, that's why I said in a way that's good or commendable, because I know everybody says it's a problem, but yeah, is anybody actually doing anything commendable about it? Yeah.
Societally, we've largely resigned ourselves to the fact that this negative information flow is there. We can't really do anything about it. And then, okay, there's a handful of people that think, oh, I'm competent enough, I could just look at all the sources and filter out what I think is right, use my judgment, use my ethics. But people don't have to actively like try to persuade you of misinformation in order for you to be duped by it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the sheer amount of it, or it's just if there's a topic that you just don't know anything about, the first time you see any information about it, you're much more likely to treat that as truth until proven otherwise. But disproving something that you already think to be true to any degree is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And
one of the things for like,
that's one thing about Wikipedia.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the things for like misinformation. A lot of people ask me, because obviously I do debate and all this research and everything. Like people ask me, like, how can you tell? Like, is there a way to easily distinguish misinformation from what's true? And that's my answer. That unfortunately, if you're talking about like a new subject that you don't know anything about, you just have to sit down and like brute force it. You have to be familiar somewhat with the topic, and then have like at least a starting foothold in an arena, and then you can start to decipher what's true or not true. But if you have no idea, then how could you possibly? There's not going to be a shortcut ever. And a lot of people don't like that answer or don't accept that answer. Or like you said, I think we overestimate our ability to be able to pick out, just intuitively, what's true or what's false. And it's very annoying that that people overestimate that, or that people think that, if it's not true, like someone will figure it out and, the truth will rise to the top anyway. And I mentioned that too when we were chatting, that it's a personal issue that a lot of people, it's something I fight against a lot. People think that humans are these like truth deciphering machines, and that eventually the truth will always be discovered and it'll come out if there's just more people debating. And it's like, you're assuming that people are optimizing or maximizing for truth, but that's absolutely not the case. There are plenty of times where we prefer to have like an uncomfortable, or we prefer to have like a comfortable answer that is not true versus like an uncomfortable reality,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I love that, because boiling things down to like either to basic human instinct or to, basic ways that people think. If some people say it oversimplifies things, but really it shows you what the debates look like in your head. Right. And in the case of certainty over temporary uncertainty, people go to their base instinct, like certainty equals safety.
Yeah.
Whether that's intellectual safety or physical safety, depending on what the information is. And it's I would say, like, all the fallacies that we find, that individual people fall for, I think those get magnified when you have a group of people that understands those fallacies and can take advantage of them. But really, just societally, like, there is a sort of hive mind, or at least multiple hive minds, that take information. People tend to go in one way or the other on a given issue, and then you get polarization, not just political polarization, but polarization of what types of ideas are even valid or.
Yeah. Even when it came to things like old wives' tales on stream, I'd be like, hold on, I'm going to Google this because this is something I remember from my childhood. But there's like so much you learn in childhood even that, and it's the same type of thing, just not as malicious. Like people believing that if you eat and then go swimming, you're going to get a cramp and die. Or if you you swallow like 7 spiders per night on average, or during the year on average, or whatever. And you say like all of these things are just totally like bullshit things that everybody happens to believe. But not like on the internet, yeah, people are even more malicious about it, which is problematic. So if you don't think that anybody's taking this issue seriously, which I mean I would agree with, what do you think is like the solution to that? How do you get people to take it seriously?
Yeah, you have to keep pushing. So in my case, if I see information that shows that there's misinformation that's being purposefully spread, or even unintentionally but on a large magnitude being spread, I myself make sure to just find someone who will listen. Whether that's sharing that with a social platform or an information platform in the case of Wiki, or bring it up to an elected leader. Even though they're not going to bring up a single piece of misinformation in Congress or in a state legislature, if you show that this is enough of a problem, eventually there will be a point at which there's a reckoning, whether that's regulatory or that's platforms seeing that they will make more money by being reliable in certain ways, when it comes to like at least obvious truths, if not, identifying misinformation campaigns and taking them seriously, and publicizing that they've tackled those efforts. That's really important. Or maybe there needs to be a new platform that eventually evolves organically, that will show that with not much additional work or just the right creative minds, you can have a platform that can take these things seriously and be successful. Largely leading by example is what needs to be done. No one wants to make the first move. That seems to be pretty apparent. You see that a lot of social media companies will follow in each other's footsteps. That one comes out with a feature, and then every other company has the same feature and a different name. Like stories and that kind of thing.
Yeah, or community
they
notes
see that
or
it's
whatever,
successful.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, in that case, same name. They saw
sure.
no point of changing that. There needs to be leading by example. Either one company needs to on their own find that there's something that will lead to a benefit, to their own benefit, and others will follow, and hopefully that aligns with what society needs. But it's unlikely to come without pressure. And so that needs to be people doing research and publicizing egregious things that they find that are in most cases being purposefully ignored or downplayed by platforms, or by government, or by nonprofits and other institutions.
I feel like my biggest issue is more like, I feel like there's a philosophical issue first, in that I don't know. So going back to that thing I said before, I don't actually know if people would prefer things that are truthful if it was the case that at the end of the day, those platforms were delivering you things that you just didn't want to hear. Like if you could deliver, like, let's say there was a platform, for instance, on the right that showed you, hey, these steps that Donald Trump are taking are actually hurting the economy, and it's like 100% proven. Or on the left, let's say there was a platform that showed you that the actual amount of racism that exists in the criminal justice system in the United States is actually very, 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 very low to nothing. Like, would people prefer to use those platforms because they're more truthful, or would they just find ways to attack kind of the meta idea of the truth and say that like, well, these types of truths aren't good in a way that the way that I've seen kind of the conservatives do this right now is like saying that fact checkers, for instance, are biased. So like Facebook, you saw had to get rid of fact checking. And a lot of people, if you link them a fact check website, they're like, oh, fact checking, that's a liberal thing. Or even JD Vance in his debate with Tim Walz was like, we shouldn't have any fact checkers. It's like, Jesus, that's kind of a crazy statement to say. But they've taken like a meta analysis of not the truths themselves, but even the way that you look for truth can be biased if they're delivering truths that they don't like. Like, how do you, I guess, overcome, or do you think that people would gravitate towards a truthful platform if it was telling them things that they really didn't want to hear, I guess, yeah?
I think it's less truth. Like, I don't think that anyone should universally be like a single arbiter of truth, because, you know, oftentimes that power leads to corruption of that entity.
For sure.
But I think trust needs to be there. And I think one thing that all these platforms really lack, you know, whether they're really large platforms, you know, like Meta with Facebook and Instagram, et cetera, or it's smaller platforms that, you know, like Lemmy and all these other ones that have popped up. If people can trust them, that's going to be a difference maker. And trust is not going to come from telling them what's true and what's false. It's going to be making sure that the data sources that are like feeding into what's presented to them come from objective approaches, not search engine optimization and advertising based approaches, which Google is fed with right now, you know, but actual like making sure that adequate weight is given to different types of sources of information, not just the people who can dump money into bringing their results towards the top.
Do you think that, and so then I guess my challenge, I'm kind of repeating myself, is like, do you feel like people would actually care about that? Because like I feel like the issue is you get into like these almost like meta conversations over what is a trustworthy source. So for instance, like Trump or like my mom would tell you that like if I start saying like, oh mom, I think that the economy is not going to do well, and she'll be like, well, why? Well, look at what the Office of Budget Management says about, for instance, like the deficit, or look what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says. If they're giving bad reports, some people will say, they won't even say the organization's not trustworthy. They'll just say that when they're reporting bad things, they're not trustworthy. How do you, I guess I don't know how to solve for those types of issues where people will, like, they'll selectively trust the same organization or entity. It reminds me when Trump said the news is fake, but the polls are real. When he was doing well in the polls, what media was like reporting bad things about him. I just feel like it's a really difficult problem to overcome.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I don't have the answer to that. I think, you know, I think in some ways that's a good thing, because if I'm just like a random guy who has an answer to this, you know, I would hope that someone else would have
figured it out by now.
You know, who does it, who has authority, you know, they would have figured out. Yeah, at least in one instance. I think, you know, rather than going person by person and getting them to understand that trust and truth are important, I think it's important to convince the companies themselves that it's important to them, and hopefully people who have an understanding of data and understanding of how important trust is to preventing harm to people. That's really the angle that I think should be taken.
I agree with that.
Sure
I think
that
the difficulty
others
though
that can be taken.
I feel like the challenge is you're using this word trust. And I think that we kind of like, we default assume that trust and truth are the same thing, when I feel like the American public at least has shown that that's not necessarily the case, that people will trust you based on the type of news you're delivering to them, whether it's truthful or not. Or at the very least, I guess one of the problems is it's hard to tell at the end of the day if a lot of the stuff is truthful, because so much of the reporting is kind of on more like abstract kinds of issues. Like for instance, if we're reporting on the border, like how do you know who's right about how many illegal immigrants came in? Like at the end of the day, you're not down there, you know? So then how do you choose between one news source or the other based on, I don't know, just it feels like the end of the day. I'm a little doomer on this, but maybe there's, hopefully it changes. But do you feel like over time, do you feel like our assessment of getting true things from like news sources or from social media, do you think that people have gotten better? Like society has gotten better in terms of deciding what they want or deciding what should be treated as true or not? Or do you think we're trending in a bad direction? What do you feel on that?
I think that it's interesting. Like, I think we're more capable of disseminating and like kind of figuring out at least consensus, than we were at any other point in history. But I think in some ways, for just a everyday person, it becomes like too much information, right? And therefore they have to be selective in how they go about figuring out what to trust or not. So it's kind of like an embarrassment of too much information.
Yeah.
So I think if that information even were just simply annotated with where it came from, did it come from some random guy and his information got filtered down and adapted and manipulated and accidentally changed and used in different places in order to be the information that's presented to them in results 1 on Google? Or, was it a series of some people who actually did research as well as experts and reliable people that got that information? Like if there were like a little annotation next to piece of information, not telling you true versus false, but giving a slight additional set of information, like metadata, you might call it, that allows you to make a better judgment call within your means. You can't interrogate every piece of information,
Sure.
but you can factor in small tidbits of information in order to make a decision. I think that would be something powerful for individuals, but I think even more powerful for the companies that are using data. And so I think making really valuable data that tech companies can't turn down, making that sort of like a data set that is well annotated and like has good understanding using objective metrics to make the barrier for them accessing that data to be that they actually use the annotations, like that could be really powerful, right? The companies want the best data in order to build their LLMs, in order to make decisions about information to present people on search engines, or for really any application that's data heavy. So if they're given better data or given data that has like an asterisk next to it, like you have to use this in particular ways, and there's ways to control that, I think that could be a means to get people information that they can actually find use for that isn't actively trying to harm them.
Sure. What is it? What do you say, like, what are you working on right now? And so far as like, do you still have an interest in pursuing more stuff related to the article that you published? And I know you guys said you published more, or are you kind of like happy with where that all is now? Or do you have like a final goal in mind or a hope where you're like, I'm going to keep reporting on this or unveiling stuff about this until something is done about it? Or
yeah, we're in terms of like the things that we've already, that I've shown interest in, and other people who are working in the misinformation space, what they've been working on. We've seen some good articles about Wikipedia and misinformation there. There's been some good journalism on like disinformation campaigns, that come from organized groups, typically hostile to the U.S. And to the West in general. It's really, I think, continuing efforts to get, eventually find the right angle that brings platforms to the table, and so we're really just kind of getting started, with Reddit and Wikipedia. We're, just at the starting point, like, any platform that allows data poisoning to occur, because to be clear, they are allowing it, they are aware that it exists. It would be pretty insane that they were not aware of data poisoning for upwards of a decade. The fact that they allow it to occur unchecked, they have to be held responsible for it. And whether that's sheer public embarrassment, or, getting them, investigated, or getting lawsuits together by affected parties, like, I think all these have to be kind of considerations for what comes next. There's obvious things that, Reddit can change and other platforms can change in the interim, in order to correct the harms that they've done. either the data that they present on their own platforms that they actively are selling to OpenAI and to Google and to others. It's no-brainer things. Like, we know they have the mechanisms to correct the issues that they've caused. Yeah, essentially, the goal is to just not stop until they change.
What do you think? What do you think are some like no-brainer implementations that platforms could do, I guess, to curb what we're talking about in terms of like data poisoning?
So in the case of Reddit, you know, I've thought about about this a lot recently, but I've thought about a lot of platforms. In the case of Reddit, they need to just go to their data customers, go to Google, go to OpenAI. It's well known that they sell their data with these like real-time API streams to Google and OpenAI, and actually clean the poison data. Like, put in the amount of time and effort that it takes.
Well, sure, but just real quick, when you say like clean the poison data, I imagine the difficulty would be like identifying it, right? Or do you think that would be trivially easy to do?
Well, they sell data. The lowest hanging fruit would be they've removed content that violates their own rules or that is illegal or copyright infringement or anything like that. They've removed it, but prior to removing that content, which often stays on the platform for weeks, months, years, it got sold to those companies. So those companies have that data. So they just need to go and tell them, do not use this information. Like, unindex this from Google, remove this from your training sets for future model creation in the case of LLMs. They have all the information they need. They just need to make the request, have the meetings, and put in the money.
Okay.
And kind of the other end of it is they need to just enforce their own rules, and it's pretty clear that they're not capable of doing that. So I would hope that people are capable, these companies, they're capable of creating some sort of oversight body that has independence. Obviously, that's worked only in varying degrees in the past, but I think there needs to be external oversight that's not tied to the money-making apparatus, because otherwise they're just going to make their decisions to minimize the effects on the bottom line.
Sure. If I take like a big capitalist free market approach to this, tell me, why hasn't Google or any of the people that are buying the data from these guys, why haven't they asked for these types of things to be enforced already, if they truly are after good data? Because if the underlying companies like Reddit and everything know, then I mean, certainly the people buying the data should have some indication of this, right?
Well, it's not in Reddit's interest to tell Google and OpenAI about individual issues, but certainly not the extent of the data poisoning, because they probably have agreed contractually to properly clean their data of their own rule-violating content, and at a certain point, they've been doing it for so long that, and without being called out by their customers. In the case of Google and OpenAI, they're like, what's the point? Like, they've kind of gone under the radar without it being exposed. And so, maybe it needs to be shown in additional ways. And that's the job of researchers, investigative journalists, and the like. It needs to be demonstrated to the point where Reddit can't hide, and their customers can't, that can't ignore the issue that they might be getting little hints of. Then maybe they just need bigger hints or a larger quantity of them. The issue shouldn't be hidden from.
Sure. Okay. Well, what else? Or is there any other direction you want to take this conversation?
Well, I'm curious. Just one random question would be like, do you have like an idea of like all the downstream effects, or like all the use that people have for LLMs and like the ways in which they affect us?
I mean, I'm sure I don't know all of them. I can probably guess at a lot of things. What is there? Yeah, do you want to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, I figure like just a few random examples would be good to point out. Like one thing is that in education, like K through 12 and beyond, teachers use large language models, whether they're just directly using ChatGPT to help them write lesson plans or write reports or create feedback for students or suggest types of research to do and different sources to use. They're using these LLMs for that. It reduces the amount of work that people have to do. It makes people's jobs easier, it reduces their stress. So why would they not do that?
Yeah.
But then that has really negative effects on kids who are particularly vulnerable to a lot of the things we discussed earlier. Where the first time you see information or you see some source about a topic, you're much more likely to believe it. And if you're shown bad sources or content developed from misinformation or from incomplete information, you're going to kind of treat that as gospel until hopefully later in life that's resolved. But it's less likely, especially if in all the domains of your life you're using large language models that are trained on the same data, that are using the same pool of information to give you answers. If they are biased and misinformed and being abused, they're going to affect you from all the angles. So education, it affects how you communicate with Siri, the Rebel Intelligence, which now uses ChatGPT. It affects just any question that you might ask to a large language model. Does a certain country have the right to exist? If you ask all the large language models that, and you run a bunch of iterations to account for variability in their responses, they're going to tell you that certain countries definitively have the right to exist. Why are you even asking this question? That kind of response. And then for certain other countries and nations, they tell you, oh, it's a complicated question, or there's no international consensus, or some non-answer like that. And in some cases, they'll tell you, no, this country does not have a right to exist, even if it meets all the same criteria as other countries. And tends to be, older countries that often exploited other countries, like Spain, Portugal, those kind of countries that have a definitive right to exist according to large language models. But then Israel and Palestine and and the Vatican and countries that are small, contain small groups of people who are typically marginalized voices, or they're just sheerly just tiny and just don't have a say in the content that people create about them.
Sure.
They end up not having the right to exist, or not having the right to self-determination in any capacity, which is pretty absurd. It's considered a fundamental human right that everyone acknowledges. Everyone that I'd want to talk to, that people have the right to self-determination.
Yeah. I guess it feels like a lot of the issues relating to AI is it's like issues we've seen before when it comes to information and how to deal with, I guess, like bad actors or people that are behaving improperly. I don't know how you would say this, but like bad sourcing and stuff. But it's the AI and the technology stuff has just allowed people to weaponize it in a way that it has never been done before at like such a scale. Like in the past, there might be like a bad academic that gets cited a lot in history books and all this, but the correction mechanism for that is usually another academic or a bunch of research by people that are somewhat trusted in knowledge. But now you have the ability to propagate bad information, not by becoming a PhD scholar and publishing bad papers or a bad book, but merely by getting a bunch of people together on Discord and going through Reddits and putting bad information out there that is going to get picked up by these LLMs that are going to be propagated through, like you said, like things like Siri or a million other things, and now it's being taken as gospel just because it shows up in a search engine. So it's making it so much easier for like bad actors to infiltrate an entire information apparatus and then be taken so much more seriously than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, and this if you look at some of the first times that information was spread on a somewhat large scale, like printing press, when that came out back in the day, some of the first things that were produced on a somewhat wide scale were anti-Semitic tractates, blood libel type books, and those were spread widely throughout Europe, and that led to people dying because people believed that Jews were these subhuman beings that were killing children. And some of the next books that were produced were witch hunting manuals and newspapers that were pointing out people in communities who might be witches, and then they were killed for, as a direct result of that information sharing.
Sure.
And although, maybe you don't get all that one-to-one results in terms of like extreme violence from a single piece of information, the fact that people can completely uninhibited just put whatever information they want, say on Wikipedia, make an edit, it's immediately fed into Google and can cause real harm to that person in the seconds, minutes, days, or weeks that it takes for that to be fixed, by someone who reverts that edit. That could lead to someone not getting a job. It could lead to, depending on what that information is, it could lead to not getting health insurance or getting procedures not approved. It could lead to someone getting fired from their job unjustly, but not really having any recourse, or having a public humiliation by that false information that they don't even seek for that to be repaired because they just want out of the limelight. It's one thing for public figures to be, to their motivations to be debated, and of course you're going to have misinformation about people who are purposefully in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that any random person can be affected by this, any business that's trying to do honest work can have just this like random, entirely profit-driven entity that doesn't care about people just spread lies about them that are targeted towards large language models and search engines in order to do harm to the honest businesses. Like, that's real damage. That affects our ability to have choice in society. It affects our ability to think critically. It's it's such a widespread effect. It's like hard to explain the magnitude without it almost starting to sound boring, because it gets philosophical at a point. But we're at the point where we have so much information available to us. We can do such good with that information. It's just people also see that those same channels that give us so much valuable information can be used for harm. And it's so vital that we identify those vulnerabilities and actually do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's going to get even more embedded into how we deal with data. A large language model company, they're just going to build another model that builds on the same data or even worse data that happens to be present when they take a snapshot, or they're just going to keep reading the open web, and people are going to find new techniques to screw up what results appear at the top of a search engine. And that's essentially what a web search is when ChatGPT is getting you an answer based on recent information it wasn't trained on. It's effectively Googling it. Maybe it's doing something with relevance matching, blah, blah, blah. But they're essentially doing what we do with our information. The fact that there's not a higher standard for these information dissemination companies is, to me, absurd.
Yeah, I agree. But then I think it goes back to my thing before, and it seems more like a meta conversation on truth. Like one conversation that people, and my big issue is it's not even that like the conversation or the concepts are hard. It's just getting somebody in the state of mind to even accept the conversation. The idea, for instance, that informational gatekeepers are not only acceptable and not only good, but they're actually like required for anything to function properly. You have to have people that gatekeep certain types of information. And when you talk about like real world things, every single person knows it intuitively, right? If you wanted to learn how to be an electrician, nobody would tell you to pull the block, pull 100 neighbors and see how they think you should wire up a box. Or if you were researching any topic or you wanted to get good at anything, people will always point you towards experts or people that they know can do the thing really well. But for some reason, when it comes to research or when it comes to printing media or whatever else, people take this totally unintuitive and opposite approach that they've like been brainwashed into believing, which is just, oh, well, a plethora of information. It was just a fuck ton of people screaming into the void at each other. The best information will rise to the top and we'll all know what's true. And there's no other circumstance in life where you would ever adhere to this model of learning, but we've all like convinced ourselves that is the case. So even the idea of like what you said at that end there, that there has to be somebody at the end of the day deciding if this information is good or relevant or, you know, contextually applicable or whatever. People like, I think revolt. They have like a revulsion when they hear this, and then they revolt against the idea of it, and like, oh no, information should be just be free and democracy, and you know, all the ideas can fight it out in the marketplace. And yeah, just I feel like it's hard to get people to even accept that premise that maybe a little bit of editorial control is actually good, and a little bit of editorial gatekeeping is maybe even essential to a lot of information environments. Wait, your thing is freaking out. Hold on, I can't understand anything you're saying. Your thing just went. You sound like a helicopter. Or Predator, maybe.
How's it now?
Oh, now you're good.
Awesome. So just to respond to what you're saying, I think in the same way that society accepts that laws are essential, you know, for the functioning of society, I think something analogous needs to be acknowledged, at least in terms of the information we consume. Because just like you need to be physically safe, and you need to have protections against people exploiting you monetarily and, you know, businesses exploiting your needs. I think the same thing is kind of true here. Like something analogous in terms of data. Like there needs to be protection. That doesn't mean there needs to be arbitration of truth, because like you're saying, like no one is going to accept an arbiter of truth. They're just going to ignore whoever's making those claims and do their own thing.
Yeah.
But if there's acknowledgement of the harms that bad information can do to you, and maybe there needs to be like just a shit ton of examples showing those harms, maybe in a short period of time and in the right way, like then that would be potentially an angle. I don't have the answers. I hope that if enough of the right people hear about this being such an issue and having so many like sort of existential implications, that they will do something that, you know, maybe I can own.
Yeah. Anything else you want to go over?
I think that's mostly it.